2 months behind on rent. Power had already been cut once. My phone screen had a spiderweb crack. My fridge hummed but stayed empty, and I'd started eating spoonfuls of peanut butter just to quiet my stomach at night. I was scrolling job boards at 2 a.m., half asleep, clicking refresh over and over again like something new would magically appear. Pet sitting, data entry, overnight stalking. Nothing would pay fast enough. Then it popped up. Paid sleep study, $500 per night. Healthy participants. No medication. It had 5 stars, over 200 reviews, the kind of listing that should have been too good to be true. But I clicked. There was a logo. Somnotech Research Group. Clinical but modern. Clean serif font, pale blue background. The kind of branding that screams legitimacy. Not some Craigslist sketch. Not a basement ad. Verified facility. Located downtown. Licensed with the state board. They even had a little partnered with local universities banner, like a stamp of approval. I laughed a little, honestly laughed. I hadn't smiled in days. My fingers shook as I filled out the application. Name? Age? Any history of sleep disorders? No. Medications? None. I lied and said I didn't smoke, even though I'd been stress smoking half a pack a week. Figured they wouldn't care. 15 minutes later, my inbox dinged. You have been selected for participation. Arrive at 9:00 p.m. No personal items. Sleep begins at 10:00 p.m. Further instructions on arrival. That was it. No follow-up questions. No waiver forms. No phone call. Not even a confirmation of what exactly they'd be studying. Just that single sentence. Precise, cold, and final. I should have known. I did know. There was something off about it. Even then. But when you're broke, options shrink. Rationality compresses. You stop thinking about what's smart and start thinking about what's fast. I showered. I even shaved. Put on the cleanest clothes I could find and stuffed my ID into my back pocket, despite there no personal items. I didn't want to show up without anything. What if this was a scam? What if I needed to prove who I was? Or get home? At 8:15 I took the bus. The address led me to the financial district. A cold maze of glass towers, office plazas, and parking garages that all looked the same. As the bus pulled away behind me, I realized how quiet the area was after dark. No bars, no restaurants. Just silence, broken only by the occasional flicker of a street lamp. I stood on the sidewalk, staring up. It was a black tower, not figuratively. The entire building was obsidian glass, the kind that doesn't reflect light but swallows it. 30 stories high, no signage, no branding. Just one floor lit up near the top, the 7th. The lobby was sterile, clinical, empty. Just polished white tile and a desk with a single tablet resting on it. Like someone had half set up a reception and walked away. Before I could even approach, I heard footsteps. A man emerged from the elevator. He wore white scrubs, not the colorful kind you see in pediatric wards, but something between a doctor's uniform and a butcher's apron. Pristine, starched. He did introduce himself. Didn't ask my name. Just looked at me, nodded once, and gestured silently toward the elevator behind him. I followed. The elevator smelled like hospital disinfectant. That sharp, sterile scent that stings your nose. The kind of smell you can never quite place, but instinctively know. Sickness, death, waiting. We didn't speak. When the doors opened, I expected something. A waiting room, maybe. A hallway. More people. But it was just one room. And I mean that literally. One room. No windows, white walls. A single bed bolted to the floor. Cameras in all 4 corners. Black domes like the ones you see in interrogation rooms. A large screen on the far wall. A stainless steel tray with a folded set of scrubs and a small bottle of water. And nothing else. No table. No chair. No clock. Just that. The man handed me the scrubs wordlessly. His eyes were pale. Not blue, not gray. Something in between, like storm water. They didn't blink much. He looked at me the way people look at dogs in kennels, like I wasn't fully human, just something to observe. I finally found my voice. "What exactly are you testing for?" He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the door. Just before leaving, he turned slightly and said, "Sleep begins at 10:00 p.m. Then the door closed behind him with a hiss. I didn't hear it lock, but I knew it had. I changed into the scrubs. They were too clean, like hotel sheets that have never been used, scratchy and stiff. I placed my clothes on the tray, then stood in the middle of the room, staring up at the cameras. No instruction, no indication of what was coming next. The screen across the room flickered. White text appeared against a black background. "Sleep begins in 30 minutes. Then a soft humming sound filled the room. Not music, more like the low frequency of a power transformer. Barely audible but constant. I sat on the bed. It was stiff but not uncomfortable. The kind of mattress they probably use in prisons or military barracks. Nothing to lull you, just enough to keep you still. I started to feel slow, not sleepy, just dulled, like the edges of my thoughts were being sanded down. I laid back, closed my eyes for a moment, tried to tell myself, "You're safe, this is normal, it's just sleep." But something kept gnawing at me. There was no intake form, no consent, no explanation of what the study was about. No emergency button, no contact number, not even a goddamn clock. And the cameras, they weren't recording, they were watching. There's a difference, you can feel it. When the screen changed again, this time counting down from 60 seconds, something shifted. The room felt colder. Not physically, but emotionally, like I wasn't alone anymore. I stood up, pressed my ear to the door. No sound. I knocked. No answer. Hello? I tried. Nothing. The countdown reached 10. My heart picked up. Something inside me said, "Don't lie down. Don't close your eyes. Don't do this." But my body was already moving. I crawled back into the bed. My limbs felt heavier than they should be, like the air had thickened. The countdown hit 0. The lights dimmed, and I blinked for just a second. And when I opened my eyes, the bed was gone. The walls were gone. I was standing, barefoot, on concrete. A hallway stretched in both directions, illuminated by buzzing, flickering fluorescent lights. The air smelled like metal, like rust, like something old had been disturbed. I looked down, still in the scrubs. My feet were cold. The floor was wet in patches, not water though, something thicker. I called out, "Hello?" No echo. I turned in a slow circle. There were no doors, just walls. Endless walls and corners that turned again and again, as if someone had folded reality into a labyrinth. My heart raced, but my breath stayed calm. It was the oddest thing. I felt terrified, but my body wouldn't respond. No panic attack, no dizziness, just silent, frozen fear. I took a step forward. The light above me flickered, then steadied. A buzzing filled the air. The sound of a dying fly trapped in a jar. I turned left, then right, another hallway, then another. No signs, no markings, just the distant sound of something dripping. And then the sensation, the feeling that someone was behind me, watching, not with curiosity, with hunger. Something was following me. I didn't see it, but I felt it. And the deeper I walked into the maze, the further away I was from waking up. The bed wasn't uncomfortable. Clean, stiff sheets. The kind of mattress you'd find in a psych ward or prison. Everything about it was designed to be tolerable, but not comforting. I remember thinking that as I lay there just after the lights dimmed, the hum from the wall had faded to silence, but not in a peaceful way. It was the silence you hear after a power outage. Thick, charged, expectant. I stared at the ceiling, tried to count breaths, tried to control the growing tightness in my chest. I wasn't panicking, not quite, but something wasn't right. The air felt wrong. Thin, but heavy, almost oily. The screen across the room lit up again, not with a countdown this time, but with a single sentence. Sleep begins in 60 seconds. No tone, no voice. Just sterile, backlit text. I didn't want to close my eyes. Every instinct in me screamed to sit up, push the emergency button. Except there wasn't one. I hadn't seen a phone, a buzzer, nothing. And that, more than anything, made my heart start racing. This wasn't a hospital. It wasn't even a lab. It was a box, a container, and I was already inside it. Still, I didn't move. Couldn't really. My arms and legs suddenly felt like they weighed 100 pounds each. My breath shortened, but I wasn't suffocating. I was sinking. The mattress didn't move, but my body felt like it was being pulled downward. Not fast, but steadily, like something underneath was gently vacuuming the air from my lungs, replacing it with sand. The lights dimmed again. My eyelids dropped. I didn't close them. They simply lowered themselves, like blinds being drawn by someone else's hand. Darkness. Then, I was standing, just like that. One moment. Heavy bed, cold room. Next, I was upright, barefoot, staring down a corridor. I didn't question it. That's the part that scares me now. In the moment, there was no confusion. No, where am I? Or, how did I get here? It was as though my mind had been rewritten, like it accepted the new setting as casually as a movie cuts to a new scene. The hallway stretched ahead of me, endlessly. Gray concrete floor, dirty, wet, in patches. Fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with an inconsistent rhythm, flickering like they were powered by a failing generator. I took one step forward and heard the wet slap of my own bare feet. Slap. Slap! Slap. And behind it, another sound. Not quite footsteps, a sort of dragging. At first, it blended into the background. Hum. But the longer I stood there, the more I noticed it. Not steady, not rhythmic. Something heavy was moving, far behind me, occasionally scraping against the concrete, like skin on stone. I turned around. Nothing. The corridor behind me stretched just as far, vanishing into murk. No doors, no markings, just miles of gray. Hello? I called. My voice echoed, but only for a second. The sound was swallowed quickly, like the walls were padded, absorbing everything they heard. I turned back forward and began walking. Slap, slap. I kept glancing behind me. Still nothing, but the sound never stopped. Always just faint enough to question, never close enough to see. Like the presence behind me wanted me to know it was there, but not what it looked like. After what felt like 10 minutes, I reached an intersection. The corridor split in two. Left was dark, almost pitch black. Right was brighter, but only because of the flickering lights. They were getting more erratic now, buzzing louder. I went right. I told myself it was the smart move. Stay where there's light. Stay visible. Stay aware. But deep down, I knew why I really went that way. I wanted whatever was following me to have a harder time hiding. The new corridor narrowed slightly. The walls pressed in, not enough to touch, but enough that I felt them. Like they were leaning toward me. There was something new on the walls now. Smudges. Not graffiti. Not writing. Just shapes. Long hand-height streaks, as though someone had scraped dirty fingers across the concrete, over and over, trying to remember how to draw. I stopped walking, listened again. The dragging sound was louder now, and slower, like whatever it was had gotten tired, or hungrier. I turned around, quickly this time, ready to confront it. But the corridor behind me was completely empty. Even the noise stopped. Dead silence. I took a step backward, and the lights above me shattered. Not popped, not flickered. Glass fell all around me, tiny crystal needles raining down. None of it hit me. None of it touched the ground either. It just froze in the air, like time had hiccuped. I blinked, and I was in a new hallway. Just like that. Different walls. Wider this time. Metal now, not concrete. The lights were red. Not emergency lights, not blinking, just red. Low and warm, like I was inside the belly of a machine. There was a hum again. This one, deeper. I could feel it in my teeth. There was a door now. My first one, heavy, steel, with a round window at eye level. I stepped forward, inside the window. Darkness, but something in that darkness moved. Closer. I didn't see it move. I saw the reflection of myself in the glass, and something behind me. It looked human, but it stood wrong. Bent at the waist, head tilted too far left, one hand pressed to the wall like it needed support just to stand. I spun around. Nothing. The hallway was empty. I turned back to the window, and this time, there was no reflection. Only a white screen, floating in the darkness beyond. On it, sleep achieved, testing memory fidelity. Then, everything went black again. This time, not suddenly. The world bled away. The walls dissolved like ash in wind. The floor cracked open, and I fell, weightless, spinning, then still, and I was back in the hallway, back to concrete, back to flickering lights, only not quite the same. Now, the walls pulsed slightly, breathing, expanding and contracting in slow rhythm, like lungs. A soft, wet sound accompanied each breath, like the sound your ear makes when pressed too hard against a pillow. I ran. I don't know why. Nothing had chased me. Nothing had spoken. But something in the air screamed at me to move. And I listened. I ran until my calves burned, until the lights above turned strobe-like, until my vision started to tunnel. And then I saw something. A mirror, just standing there. No frame, no backing, no explanation. A single mirror in the middle of the corridor, tilted slightly toward me. I stopped, stepped toward it, and froze. The person in the reflection wasn't me. It looked like me. Same face, same scrubs, but the eyes were wrong, milky and distant, like they'd been underwater too long. The mouth was open slightly, lips twitching, trying to form words that never came, and behind it, behind the mirror me, something loomed. Not visible, but present. The reflection's head jerked violently to the side, eyes wide. Then, darkness again, and when I opened my eyes, I was sitting upright in the bed, breathing hard, chest heaving, sweat pouring down my back like I'd run a marathon. The fluorescent ceiling light flicked on. The man in the white scrubs was standing in the corner, clipboard in hand. He didn't look surprised, didn't look concerned, just scribbled something down as I gasped for air. "Good response," he said quietly. "You'll return tonight." I stared at him. "What happened?" I managed to choke out. "Where was I? What the hell was that place? What was chasing me?" He looked up from his clipboard and smiled. "You still asleep?" he said. Then he turned and walked out. The door closed, and the lights flickered again, and I blinked, and I was back. Back in the hallway, only this time, something was waiting for me. I woke up at 2 a.m., gasping. Cold air stung my throat. My neck ached. The thin blanket clung to me, soaked in sweat. I was back in the bed. The same room. The same silent cameras in the corners. Everything exactly as it had been, except for the man in white. He was already there, standing at the foot of the bed, scribbling something down. I stared at him, tried to speak. My throat burned. My throat numb. He looked up and nodded, almost politely. "Good response," he said again. "You'll return tonight." "Wait," I croaked. "What was that? That place? I was in a hallway. Something was following me. Something was following me." He tilted his head slightly. "You're still asleep," he said, and smiled. Not a comforting smile, not even an amused one. It was an acknowledgement, like he'd just confirmed something. Then he turned and left the room, the door closing behind him with a hiss. I sat there, frozen. Still asleep? No, I was awake. I had to be. I could feel the sheets, the cold sweat, the ache in my joints. This was real. This was the waking world. But the silence was too complete, not peaceful, total, engineered. I stood up, unsteady. My legs trembled. There was no clock in the room, no window. The screen on the wall was black now. I crossed the room slowly, reached out and pressed my hand to the wall. It was soft, not warm, not plush, but soft, like the padding in a soundproof booth. I took a breath and blinked. Just once, but when I opened my eyes, the room was gone. I was standing barefoot in the hallway again, the same as before, almost. This time it was darker, warmer. The air pressed against my skin like damp fabric. The lights above me didn't flicker anymore. They pulsed, a slow red rhythm, like a heartbeat, the kind of light that made every shadow look alive. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just stood there, numb. The air carried a new sound now, something subtle but constant. Breathing, not mine. Heavy, uneven, raspy, like someone with half a lung, struggling to inhale. And it was getting closer. No footsteps, no echo, just breath, wet, thick, trying. It sounded wrong, like it was learning how to breathe, mimicking it, failing. I turned around. Nothing. But I felt it, behind the walls, inside them, watching. I started walking. I didn't know where to. There was never a destination in this place. No signs, no sense of direction, just forward. The walls were different now, less uniform. They curved, sometimes bulged. In some places, they seemed to vibrate, faintly, like something just beneath the surface was moving. I walked until the floor began to slope downward, barely noticeable at first, then more, then more. Soon I was descending a ramp, spiraling deeper, like the inside of a parking garage. But there were no cars, just stains on the floor, footprints, smears. The red light faded as I went lower, replaced by something worse, a blue glow that didn't seem to come from anywhere, just floated in the air like mist. That's when I started hearing the whisper. Not a voice, not words, but something brushing against my mind, like a thought I didn't think, a suggestion. Stay. I stopped walking. The blue glow thickened, curling around my feet. Stay, 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 stay. The sound wasn't coming from outside me. It was inside, underneath my thoughts, buried like a parasite. I turned around. There was no ramp behind me anymore. Only black. I was trapped. I took a breath, and the breath didn't come. I choked, reached for my throat. My mouth opened, but nothing happened. My lungs stayed empty. The glow wrapped around my face, and then, snap. Snap! I was in my apartment. My real apartment. Morning light streamed through the blinds. My dog, Oliver, was curled up at my feet on the bed, snoring softly. I burst into tears. I didn't even try to understand. I didn't care how I got there. I just dropped to the floor and hugged him, buried my face in his fur. But then I remembered. Oliver died 4 years ago. Cancer. I held him as the vet put him down, and now he was here, warm, real, alive. He looked up at me, tail wagging lazily. I stood up, disoriented. My apartment looked, right, a little cleaner than I remembered, but mostly right. I walked to the kitchen. Everything was in its place. Then I opened the fridge. Empty. Not just missing food. Empty. No shelves. No light. Just black. Featureless space. I opened a cabinet. Same thing. Blank wood. No dishes. No hinges. I opened the drawer where I kept the silverware. There was a note inside, folded neatly. Typed. I unfolded it. It said, Cycle 3, Memory Environment Degradation. Subject approaching lucidity. I dropped the paper, backed away. Something shifted in the walls. The paint peeled in a wave, rolling down the hall like an invisible torch was burning it. The furniture melted, and then the walls opened, like paper tearing. Behind them, the hallway. Of course. I was never in my apartment. It was just another layer, another skin they'd stretched over the same endless corridor. My knees buckled. I crawled forward, tried to scream, but no sound came out. The floor cracked beneath me, and I fell again. This time, I landed in the bed, back in the lab room, breathing fast, too fast. The lights above flickered wildly now. I sat up. One of the cameras was gone. In its place, a hole in the wall, black and pulsing, and I swear something blinked inside it. I turned to the screen. New text appeared. Cycle 6 complete. Partial lucidity achieved. Recalibrating scenario. Then the lights cut out. Pitch black. And in that blackness, I heard something speak. Not from outside, from inside me, a whisper, but not words. It was laughter, my laughter, twisted, stretched, pulled through something wet, and it didn't stop, even when I covered my ears, even when I begged it to stop, even when I told myself I was awake, because I wasn't, and I think I never will be. I think I've woken up at least a dozen more times since then. Each one feels a little more convincing. One morning I opened my eyes in a sunny bedroom I didn't recognize. A woman smiled at me from the doorway, said, "You slept in," and kissed my forehead like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Another time I was a teenager again, in my childhood bedroom, with posters on the wall I hadn't seen in years, and my old Nintendo still hooked up to the tube TV. But something always gives it away. A wrong date on a calendar, an extra finger on someone's hand, the sound of my own voice, playing back on a delay when I speak, and always, the cameras, hidden at first, but they're there, in mirrors, in doorknobs, reflected in someone's eyes, watching, waiting. And then, without warning, everything peels back like skin. And I'm back in the lab again. That goddamn room with no windows. That bed. The screen. The static silence. Last time, I screamed until my throat tore. The man in white came in, except it wasn't him anymore. It looked like him. The same face, same blank expression, but the eyes weren't human. Too big, too still. I begged him to let me out, to tell me what this is, to tell me if I'm dead. He just wrote something on the clipboard. Then he tilted his head and said, "You're adjusting well," and left. The door didn't close this time. It vanished, just blinked out existence. And beyond it, the hallway. It's always the hallway. It's like it's waiting for me now, like I belong to it. Each cycle lasts longer, or shorter. I can't tell anymore. Time is a trick in here. A word someone taught me once that stopped meaning anything. I stopped keeping track around cycle 100. The last time I saw the screen, it said, Cycle 100 Windows 7 complete. Lucidity achieved. Proceed to containment. I think that's what this part is. Containment. This loop. This box. This version of me that still thinks it can find the edges and claw its way out. I haven't eaten in weeks. I haven't felt hunger. I haven't used the bathroom. I haven't aged. I don't breathe sometimes. I'll go hours before realizing it. The cameras have moved again. One of them is embedded in the ceiling. It tracks me now, visibly swiveling to follow my face. The other, I found inside the mattress. I heard a faint ticking one night, tore the bed open with my bare hands, foam and wire everywhere. There it was, a lens, blinking, watching me from inside the thing I was supposed to rest on. They don't want me to rest anymore. They want me to adapt, because here's the thing, I think I'm not the only one. Sometimes in the hallway I hear footsteps ahead of me. I follow, I run, and I see shapes turn corners just before I do. The flick of a shadow, a bare heel, someone gasping for breath. Sometimes I catch up, just for a moment. I see them, people like me. Lost, crying, screaming. But every time I reach out, they vanish, like reflections on broken glass. I think those are the others, other test subjects, other dreamers, other prisoners. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe you've been here too, and maybe you're still here, right now, listening, thinking you're safe, thinking you're awake. But look around. Do you remember falling asleep last night? Do you remember what day it is? When was the last time you felt hungry? Do your memories feel thin, like paper props in a set? Check your clock. Has the time changed? Has anything changed? Because I don't think you're where you think you are. I think this place, this study, is bigger than I realized. Deeper. It's not a room. It's a system. A dream fed by dreams. And once it knows your mind, it keeps you. Forever. I stopped trying to scream days ago, or hours, or cycles. Whatever passes for time here. Instead, I've started whispering to myself, reminding myself who I was, what I looked like, the names of people I loved, because those things are slipping, and once they're gone, I think I'll be gone too. One more echo in this place, one more runner in the hallway. So if you're hearing this, if this story found you, please listen. Don't answer the ad. Don't go into the study, because once you lie down in that bed, once you close your eyes, you don't wake up. You just keep falling and falling and falling until you forget you were ever real at all.